Happy Wednesday. So, here's how you can kill your company's chances at excellence in the next 2 years. You ready? First of all, why 2 years? So, in many different books, studies, fields of study, um, human design being one of them, 2027 to 2030 depends on the book and the field of study, but somewhere in those range, pretty much every teacher and every prophet has predicted that we're going into another turning of the era, meaning for human design, it's early in 2027, where we'll be moving into a different era. We'll be moving out of the era of the planning or of the tribe, you could say, into the era of the individual. And I'm not going to go into that because this is not a human design video. However, um, we got a couple of years to get things right. Okay. And a lot of people don't know that. A lot of people think that, they're going to try to stay with the trends and the times and stay updated. And so here's why I want to break this down for you in a very loving and real way, like only I do. Why you don't want to wait, okay? What's coming up and what you can do about it. So, I posted over the past week or so my joy and excitement at being chosen, you could say, to be a pioneer and a role model for the world that we're moving into. Not all areas of it, but there are two areas specifically that I specialize in. And one is in trusting your intuitive knowing in the now, um, and operating from that place. That doesn't sound that special. However, if you really look at it, even in these conscious, heart based, purpose driven businesses, most operate from the mind, from planning, certainly not from the intuitive knowing that may or may not, usually doesn't have a logical explanation. Okay? So that's number one. The second area where I am a role model or a pioneer is in intimacy, is in vulnerability, it's in transparency, it's in really speaking truth from an open and unguarded place. Almost unheard of in any area of life, especially in business. Okay, so these two areas are areas that I champion, and I'm so excited to do so. I shared a little bit of my stories about money stewardship and just overall relationships with money and manifestation and being real versus being fake. All of these things I feel very passionately about. What I am here to showcase or to demonstrate, to model. And then I also love learning from so many other different types of pioneers around me, and also from those wisdom keepers who are guardians of the wisdom of the era that's passing, right? The era from the past wasn't all bad. There was so much good that we can salvage and take with us into the future. So I have honor for all of the different wisdom keepers around me. I am one of many, and I just want to really emphasize that this isn't about Deborah, but I wanted to be clear on the kind of flavor that you can expect from me. So let's start with the first area, which is where you can kill your chances to excel in the next couple of years is if you continue to stick to learning from industry leaders and household names with proven track records. I don't know how many times in a day I scroll past posts with business advice from the big names to people that no one's heard of and everybody in between, talking about how we need to find somebody who's gotten what we think we want and follow their proven track record. Now that kind of worked in the old ways of proving oneself and um, needing external tangible results to believe something. But in the era that we're moving into, the era of the individual, that intuitive knowing is not coming from some external stuff. It's completely internally driven. So when we go to these household names and these teachers who mean well and have gotten amazing success, and look, I'm not in any way trying to take anything from them, but who are not you, in the area of the individual, that stuff doesn't work. Okay, you might be able to get away with it for a few more years, but you will not be in the space of excellence moving into the next era, because that stuff doesn't work. It's not about what somebody else is doing. It's not about what other people think. It's not about what's external. It's about what's coming from within. It's always been about that, but now it's going to be a lot less. There's a lot less uh, wiggle room for error with that. If you're going to continue to look externally for models of external tangible results, because you might actually get those tangible results, and then what? And then when you've solved the problem but not really, yeah, you can call me then. However, you will be behind you'll be a little behind. So if you want to be a leader in what we're moving into, and you're okay with being maybe not quite as popular in what we're moving out of, then you want to be aware that your guidance, where you go to for learning, needs to be driven or authorized or approved by what you are feeling internally, intuitively, not what other people with external results who are not you are saying. Um, how do you tune into that intuition? How do you know that you're what you're thinking and what you're trusting is accurate? That's where having a mentor like myself can be very helpful, to be able to help you to see, okay, keep it really simple, Deborah. I'm not into this woo woo esoteric stuff, but how do I make sure that I'm really truly tuning into my intuition and it's not just my fear? Just my fear. Second point, an area of excellence is keeping business and personal separate. So, you know that phrase, oh, don't take it personal, it's just business. Yeah, so that also doesn't work in the era that we're moving into. I don't know that it ever worked because, it's not like we block off parts of our brain like, oh, this is for business and this is for personal. We don't block off parts of our emotions. Oh, this is for business and this is personal. It never really existed. It's always been this like made up thing that we've tried our best to be professional at work, and it doesn't work. Okay, you're one human being. The patterns in you don't know where business starts and professional and ends, and where personal starts and ends. They just know, they're just running through you, just like your blood and your nervous system and everything else. So let's just be real and understand that that strategy don't work. If it did work in the past to some extent, it's definitely going to work less and less in the future. Instead, it's important to understand how to be one integrated individual who can understand what patterns are showing up and address those patterns from a place of compassion, regardless of whether they show up at home or at work or both places, most likely both places. Okay, so that's number two. Number three, sending people to therapy when they're having a hard time emotionally. So that's a really interesting one because someone was mentioning this today. We were talking about how, the problem is never the problem, and the conversation is never really the conversation, and the complaint is never really the complaint, because there's all kinds of, underlying fears and pains and traumas and wounds and so forth. And someone mentioned in the comments, that's why they have a therapist. They go see a therapist, and I think that's great. I've seen many different therapists in my day, and I think therapy is a wonderful tool. I use a form of therapy right now. However, here is the deal. Our segregating mental health to one profession, really any health, not just mental health, physical health, all health, okay, to one group, I see as incredibly problematic. And I see The true leaders of the future is understanding how to say, oh my goodness, let us create a community of care here. Because what is our greatest asset? Our greatest asset is our people. And people are not machines. We don't have an on and an off switch for our emotions. We go through grief, we go through sorrow. And yes, therapy isn't, like I said, I'm not taking anything away from therapy. Go to therapy. But is that the only place where this person can express any of their grief? Is that the only place where it's safe for that person to shed a tear? Then there's a problem. That's old school. That's how they used to do it back in whatever day, but it's not going to work moving forward. So if you don't know how to provide a true community of care for your people that's holistic, that really cares about mind, body, and spirit, so that they can actually be whole in their work and perform at their highest potential in that particular position for however long they occupy it, then you're going to need some tools. If you don't have that in place already, you're going to need some tools. It's not complicated. You don't have to become a babysitter or a therapist. You just need some basic tools on how to create a truly psychological, safe, and trusting environment for your people. It's worth the investment of time and energy. It's not complicated, but it is incredibly important to create a foundation of safety for your people, and it will pay you in every format of capital over and over again. All right, number 4, stick to chasing 3 and 5 year strategic plan KPIs. Dude, times are changing by the day, by the hour, by the week. You cannot go off of something from 3 years ago, 2 years ago, a year ago. Could you have anticipated that the world would be the way it is a year ago? You had no clue. So it doesn't mean don't have metrics or KPIs. Have them, but you need to be checking in on them so much more frequently, and they need to be shifting. If they're not shifting, I guess there's a possibility that they were really written well for like a really, really aligned mission and vision. But more likely, from what I've seen from many business as usual perspectives, um, they need updating over and over again. If you're not sure, if you like a neutral third party, an objective outside opinion, book a call, let's talk. It's free, and I can take a look at your KPIs, your strategic plan, and see and tune into whether that's really in alignment with where your organization really is needing to go in this moment. Okay, 5th and finally, make decisions based on forecasts of changes as a result of political changes. This is the best one. So now everyone's like, oh, I don't know if that's going to stay funded. Look, political changes are how do I say this concisely? Political changes are happening as a result of consciousness, whether it's the hidden consciousness or the surface consciousness, really doesn't matter. I'm not going to get into that debate right now, but the point is they are reflections. So really, to come into the era that we're moving into, the era of the individual, where we are creating from a sovereign place, then that means that you're creating like you're making each decision you make is you creating how you want the world to be, how you see a human as acting. That's each decision that we all make, every one of us. Some of us are more aware of that than others. But tuning into that, it sounds nice and lofty and high, but how does that happen on a day-to-day, you know, moment-to-moment basis in your organization, with your team, with you as an individual? That's something that needs clarity. So I hope these 5 things helped you kind of, stirred some stuff up. I would love to read your thoughts in the comments. Tomorrow at 12 noon Mountain Time, so that's 11 a.m. Pacific or 2 p.m. Eastern, I'm going to be hosting a workshop. It's completely free. And I'm going to go through something called the first chapter, Radical Self-Activation. And I'm going to be tying all of these different things together, giving you a little bit more information as to why these next 2 years are going to be so critical and so important for your company, for your team, for your organization, even for your family, and how you can take very, very simple tools and use those to create a psychologically safe and trust building, trust growing environment where a healthy culture can thrive, people can do their best, find their way, whether it's doing their best with you or somewhere else, and where you can be the leader, excelling at the end of this 2 year period, this window, with clarity as to what you are here to do, how you are here to lead, the impact that your organization is here to make, and how you can be a role model and an advocate for others. All right. This is Deborah A. signing off. Much love.